All right, so we are going to be continuing our work with our literary essay. On Monday, we are going to start our drafts. So we're going to be starting our essays on Monday. One of the last things we're going to look at before we start our big draft is looking at how the author's craft shows us a theme. Can somebody remind me what author's craft is? We talked about this last week with Telltale Heart. We talked about it with Hatchet. We talked about it with we use one more example, but I'm drawing a blank. What is author's craft, or what does when people craft things? What does that mean? They make something. Remember how we had those two paintings next to each other, and we said, okay, look at these two paintings. How are they made differently? So author's craft is how writers do what? Yeah, it's how writers write. It's what kind of descriptive language do they use? What kind of dialogue do they use? What kind of sentence structure do they use? How do they form their sentences? Like, you can tell what story is a Jordan Sonnenblick story because he's always sarcastic, right? He's the one who wrote Drums, Girls, Dangerous Pie, okay? All right. So we're going to practice this today. If my computer will. There we go. So, for example, this is kind of fun to think about. In a kind way, I want you to respond to this question. So a lot of us speak in different ways. For example, if you know anybody from Canada, they always speak with their voice going up at the end of a sentence like this. And then they always say, "Eh?" That's how Canadians talk, right? They talk like everything they say is a question. Eh? Think about how people talk. I had a teacher growing up who always said, "as far as that goes," at the end of every sentence. It was for real. So it was one of those things, but I knew that if I was listening to him talk, I knew what some of his things were that he was going to say. So think about how people talk. Think if they end every sentence in a question, like people from Canada do, or if they have any catchphrases that they say. I know I say things that are very weird words, but that's just who I am. Think about things that show people either by how they speak or how they write, and go ahead and type that into your Pear Deck right now. So here are some of the examples that you guys came up with. Using a lot of punctuation. Are you one of those people who texts all the time with like 47 exclamation points? Or like I have an aunt who texts in all caps and you're like, "Stop yelling at me," right? She's not actually yelling, but she doesn't understand how you text. No. And then you have like people who talk with different accents. And then you say, "When my sister gets home, what's up, diggity dog?" Big choice of words. My brother speaks in very large words all the time. And you're like, okay, that's fancy. You have different grammar mistakes that you have. Bruh, right? You have boy. People having a list, rolling their tongue, talks about what mood they're in. Yeah, so my grandma uses big words I don't understand. That's my brother, okay? Yeah, like I said, my aunt texting in all caps, and you're like, "Stop yelling at me." When people are on Facebook and they make their all cap responses and you don't understand what they're saying, right? So that is what we're going to talk about today, is when you look at how authors write and how what they write reflects the theme, okay? So this is what we're going to do. And if you would like to write this down in your reader's notebook after what we wrote yesterday, that would be great. We are connecting the theme to how they write. So you're going to look at what theme you might have. And then you're going to look back at a scene. Okay, so maybe your theme is don't be too trusting. Or maybe your theme is don't take advantage of people. Or maybe your theme is pay attention to the surroundings, pay attention to what's going on around you. Or maybe your theme is we can learn a lot from people we interact with. What you're going to do is you're going to have that theme, and then you're going to go back to a scene just like we did yesterday. You're going to go back and look at a specific scene, and then you're going to reread it and look for what specific literary devices or what specific craft moves that author uses. So like this is what we talked about with author's craft. Did they use figurative language, like alliteration? Did they use personification? Do they use a lot of similes and metaphors? Do they use really strong word choice? Why did the author choose these words to show that theme? And we'll talk about that here in a second with All Summer in a Day. Is it super short sentences? Because if people talk in super short sentences, it always seems like they're in a rush, right? And you're like, come on, let's go. Is it long sentences? Like, remember how we read Hatchet? You could tell it was just flowing. We read it with just that author's craft PowerPoint. It was just 4 slides of Hatchet. We didn't read the whole book, but it was long sentences and it was flowing, okay? But if it's short sentences, it makes it seem like it's more in a rush. But the word choice, when authors use specific words, that will really help you get your theme across. All right, I'll give you a second. If you didn't get this written down, I'll give you a second to finish writing that down. So we are now going to try this with All Summer in a Day, okay? Here's a certain part. Now remember, we're going to pay attention to what specific things that we're noticing. Ray Bradbury is the author. What specific things are you noticing with this section, okay? Oh, but Margot whispered, her eyes helpless. But this is the day the scientists predict, they say, they know, the sun. All a joke, said the boy, and seized her roughly. Hey, everyone, let's put her in a closet before teacher comes. No, said Margot, falling back. They surged about her, caught her up, and bore her, protesting and then pleading and then crying, back into a tunnel, a room, a closet where they slammed and locked the door. They stood looking at the door and saw it tremble before her beating and throwing herself against it. They heard her muffled cries. Then, smiling, they turned and went out and back down the tunnel just as the teacher arrived. So take a minute in Pear Deck, write down what is one thing that you noticed that Ray Bradbury does. Is it certain figurative language? Is it strong word choice? That's me winking at you. Is he using super strong words? Is he using other certain figurative language? Look at his sentence structure. Does he make things seem rushed? So take a second and think about what is one thing that you notice Ray Bradbury does there. Okay, so here are some of the strong word choices and different things that you guys notice, some craft moves that Ray Bradbury used. So a lot of punctuation. You have your strong word choice like seized, breakdown. They surged about her, bore her, protesting. Vivid image, strong word choice, using good words to make the scene more alive. Yeah, you guys did a good job with that. So here's some examples here that you guys found and some that I had found ahead of time. So we have whispered when she feels helpless. So using that, you can kind of imagine her whispering and feeling kind of like down. We had surge, the long sentence like surge, the kids are swept up in the situation. Surge feels like a wave. Looking at those words, okay, and you guys had they bore around her or some of the other things that you guys noticed. Looking at those details, how does that show us that jealousy makes us selfish or blind to others? Okay, so looking at what everybody just saw and what I just showed you on the screen and some of these things that I noticed, how does that show us that jealousy makes us selfish or blind? Jealousy makes us mean. Remember how we've been talking about that as the theme? How do all of these craft decisions, these strong word choices, how does this show that jealousy makes us mean? Okay, so here are some things that you guys said. It shows that they're swept up in the situation and they're selfish and they're being mean. They're caught up in the moment. They throw her in the closet. You see with the word choice that they use just how angry they are. Good. It allows you to paint a picture and see how jealous they are. Shows how mean they are. So, hi. So yes, you guys are right. These specific words really show how jealous and how mean they are and how much they ignore everybody else. If they surge around her and you can almost imagine them like gathering around her, seeing how mean they are and just ignoring the fact that she's a person and she has emotions and they're just shoving her in a closet because they're jealous. Yeah, you see that. Okay. So, if I were to write about this is an example of that. So you could say, and this is what eventually is going to be our goal today. Okay. So our goal today is to look at our stories, find a couple certain craft moves that show your theme, and then you're going to write a paragraph about it. So here's a paragraph that we have. This is an example that you are going to use to model your work off of. So here we go. In this scene, Bradbury, the author of All Summer and a Day, uses descriptive language, word choice, to show how vulnerable Margot is, and he uses long sentences to show how the children have gotten swept up in their jealousy. And I think somebody even had said that on the Pear Deck. This connects to the idea that jealousy makes you blind to others because the children cannot see how much they are hurting Margot. The long sentence, they searched about her, caught her up, and bore her, protesting and then pleading and then crying, back into a tunnel, a room, a closet, where they slammed and locked the door, shows them not knowing what they are doing. It shows the action. It shows the intensity, right? They are caught up in their own jealousy. Somebody else put that on the Pear Deck. This makes me realize this story shows us that when you get caught up in your own pain, you can hurt other people. Bradbury uses descriptive language and long sentences to illustrate how out of control the children have become because of their jealousy. Okay, so here's your work today, and I'm going to show you how to get there. You are going to think about the theme. Think about the what you guys chose today as your journal entry. That is going to be the theme that you're going to write with. You are going to pick one theme as what is you're going to focus on, especially with your draft essay. So you're going to take your theme, and you're going to use that to look back at key scenes that show that theme. So maybe you're looking at Don't Be Too Trusting with the landlady, and you're talking about don't be too trusting. And part of me is like, probably the fact that when he goes to her house and he notices that these people that he's known are now gone, and they were the only two people who have stayed at her house, that is a key scene. So I should probably look there and look at some craft moves that the author did. Okay. So there's a chart on Schoology, and I'm going to show you how to get there. Okay. If you go to Schoology, so in a new tab, keep this PowerPoint open. In a new tab, go to Schoology. In a new tab, go to Schoology, Classroom Materials, Writing, the Literary Essay, because that's what we're working on. And it's the very last one, Session 3, Graphic Organizer, Author's Craft, okay? It's going to come up, and you are going to click on your document, and it's going to look like this. It's green today, okay? Now, I modeled it for you, and then you are going to do the same thing with your story. So everything up top, you don't have to do anything with. That is my work. That is so you can see it. So one of the things that we talked about, word choice and descriptive language. Her helpless eyes. She was seized roughly. The students surged about her. That's how we talked about how helpless she felt when the children were treating her. That shows how mean they were to her, right? We already talked about that. The other thing that we can look at is the punctuation. This long sentence here really shows how urgent the moment is, and it shows how everybody can visualize how mean they are, right? And then this right here is the paragraph that I just read to you. So now your task is to go back with your story, find two different things. Is it word choice? Is it sentence structure? Is it figurative language? Is it certain dialogue that a character has? Look at those two devices, and I want you to cite it properly. And then I want you to say how it shows the theme. So if there's like an urgent moment that shows the theme, maybe this person's getting freaked out by this monkey's paw that is killing, at the end, with the monkey's paw, how the sun comes, and then they're like, go answer the door. And he's like, I can't. It's kind of a big scene there. Go look there. See how that scene shows the theme. And look, is it the sentence structure? Is it the urgency in that sentence? Or is it super descriptive words? Okay. Then underneath, you are going to write a paragraph like this one. Your paragraph is going to talk about how this language shows the theme, just like this one up here does. Okay. This is going to be due by the end of the period. Okay. We're going to come together and kind of do something else with about 10 minutes left. So make sure that you're working. If you need help, we're here. Okay. But remember, you know your theme. Everybody in here has a theme. Go back in the story where you can really notice the scene where that theme is showing through and look at specific ways your author wrote. Okay. All right. Let's give it a shot.